being able to understand whatever's going on for you, the minute you start a meeting or the minute you're in front of a group of people, you have to be able to find a way to center your energy and to be able to perform, because you are in front of people. And as a leader, whether you like it or not, your energy signature follows you. Your energy signature is a part of who you are.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Keynote Curators Podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator. Our guest today is Emma Doyle, known as Coach M. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Seth. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, the pleasure is ours for our community. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a return listener, viewer, thank you so much. And share alike with everybody and everybody you know. Coach M, I want to get right into the heart of the matter. You talk about energy. It's chapter 5 in your book, What Makes a Great Coach. And that chapter really spoke to me. That just really spoke to me. We have a renowned tennis elite performance professional that's been able to cross the bridge and connect tennis performance to the business and personal world and elite performance. And we're going to tie in Albert Einstein to it because he said everything is energy. And how we got to a point on this podcast where we're connecting tennis, Albert Einstein, and physics, I don't know, but I'm counting on you to kind of land that plane, if you will.
Well, first of all, my dad is a scientist. And so when I was growing up playing tennis, of course, he was always talking to me about on my serve, and he'd say, kick your back leg up with the arabesque position. And I was like, what is he talking about? And then when I really began to study biomechanics and fall in love with the energy of how to maximize your body, how to maximize your performance, of course, I then related it so much further and so much deeper as a business coach, because everything is energy. Whether I'm coaching somebody, whether I'm giving a keynote talk, it is a dance between you and the audience or whoever you are coaching or whoever you are managing and leading in the workplace. So definitely one of my superpowers is energy, and it is potentially growing up in a big family. I'm number 3 of 4, and there was always 7 of us with grandparents at the dinner table. And so being able to harness energy, manage energy, understand energy, how do we use it to communicate? How do we use it to relate to people? And I think teaching that and understanding, in the book, I talk about what are your energy top-ups, what are your energy traps, and how do you manage your energy to be able to bring out the best in yourself day in, day out. So hopefully that tied it all together.
No, it did, because, I mean, you strike me as highly energetic. It comes across in your book here, What Makes a Great Coach, and the lessons that you draw from. One of the things you refer to is the energy signature. Am I recalling that correctly? And that really spoke to me too. Here's my inquiry. And, you address it in that chapter where they're the naysayers. I call them the cynics, or the people that are resigned. Oh, it's fake. It's inauthentic. Hey, good morning. How you doing? And maybe it is. But how do you reconcile when, as an individual, and maybe your signature is your energy, right? But how do you reconcile those days where the energy isn't there? You're distracted. There's some other important thing occupying the energy or the space in your mind. What do you say to our viewers and listeners? And how do you handle that?
Yeah. So first of all, let's define what an energy signature. What do I mean by energy signature? And that is that it takes 7 seconds to form a first impression. So your energy signature, or think of it like even the shadow leader, when you stand and the sun hits you and you've got this massive shadow behind you. Okay, that's what people see. So in those first 7 seconds, no matter what's going on for you as a manager, as a leader, as a coach, it is important that you bring the energy to the room, because there's a vibration around that. where people will feed off it, they will feel it, and they will really say, okay, they'll make a judgment. They can't help themselves. We know no other. Okay. So being able to understand, first of all, what sort of energy signature do you have? And how do you maximize that? Because we don't all need to be extroverted energy, not at all. Some great introverted leaders have amazing energy and presence when they walk into a room. But what I would say is being able to understand whatever's going on for you the minute you start a meeting or the minute you're in front of a group of people, you have to be able to find a way to center your energy and to be able to perform because you are in front of people. And as a leader, whether you like it or not, your energy signature follows you. Your energy
Yeah.
signature is a part of who you are. One thing that I do, I say it takes me about 8 seconds to recalibrate, is just to anchor myself with my thumb, my index finger, and my middle finger. And even standing as I do this interview with you is a different energy than me sitting down. So I anchor myself. I just take a couple of diaphragmatic breaths, which is breathing into the belly, deep breathing, and I'm good to go. No matter what's happened this morning, no matter what sort of maybe a potential meeting or something that didn't go well, to be able to bring it. You've got to be able to
Yeah.
bring it as a
Yeah.
manager, as a leader, as a coach. And they're the people that I love to work with.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but you have to be true to yourself. So there could be an introvert, but you could have a strong energy signature, or there are ambiverts. We've covered that on this program where, depending on that's a situational kind of dependence, right? Where the extrovert will come out or the introvert will not come out. Um,
100%.
and you have to be true to yourself and you have to be who you are. And like you're talking about grounded, one of the things about in tennis, I'm a very active recreational player. I shared that with you offline a couple of times, and I played this morning. One of the things that I got out of the book, and I truly mean this, since January, I have really worked on this, is my self-talk or managing it, because what I relate to it now is its energy. And I was never like the berater, like, you stink, like, not that, but it was enough where it was displacing. And I was on the wrong side of the dial, let's say, or the needle was on the wrong side of the line. Even though it wasn't hyper negative on the face of it, it was consuming, the signature was wrong. I turned to checking my strings. You mentioned grounding your fingers and just channeling it and having the ability to quickly kind of flush the toilet, as I say, and move on. That's the great thing about tennis. There's another opportunity. But you mentioned coming into a meeting and you need a reset. I know you do, I've learned through your book, you do work with neuro-linguistic programming and emotional intelligence, and that plays a major role, a major part in your coaching. Share with us how these methodologies enhance that, how you use it in the corporate setting, how you use it on the tennis court, and everywhere and anywhere in between, and how that might benefit our viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing I would say is that tennis is a wonderful game to teach us life lessons. And as you know, almost 50% of the time, we're coming second in the rally. Okay. So we've got a
Right.
micro moment to get over ourselves and to focus all our energy on the next point. So the number one mistake that I see people make is they focus and dwell on the past. Even in the workplace, when they have a meeting, too much time is spent on what went wrong. Now, in my TEDx talk, which is called Unleashing Female Potential, one of the powerful messages within that talk is the power of these 2 words, game-changing words. Are you ready for them, Seth? Are you ready?
Hold on. I'm ready.
Okay. Next time. So next time, I'm going to take my racket back earlier. We're in the meeting. Next time, here's how we could here's how we could approach that conversation differently in the workplace. So just by doing that, we're flipping our mind into the future. And then we need to return to the present, execute, and deliver. So that's a little mindset hack that taps into a lot of the neuro-linguistic programming. So how I'm programming myself to be future based in my thinking, because that will strengthen my inner voice, my private inner voice, the one that no one hears except for me. And the more I can strengthen that and the more it can be future based, I'm not saying we don't address problems. I'm saying if you can train yourself to not dwell on the problem and get immediately into a future based solution around options, around possibilities, around being curious. Another superpower of a manager, leader, and coach is to be super curious and to go curious rather than I don't know or that's not possible. What if you were to go curious? So there's two little quick tips there to go curious. And next time that will significantly impact the power of the inner voice to be able to strengthen that mindset and be able to put you in the right phase to be able to get over yourself so you can get on with your situation.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
I love that because as you say in tennis, but it's so true whether it's in the boardroom or I own and operate a small business just like you. And there is the opportunity right there. We can be informed by the past and what happened. We can debrief, but not to dwell, take the learnings and then place it into that next time. I think it's very powerful. The interesting or the curious or the kind of antithetical thing about human beings is what is it that we get out of dwelling on the past? There's some juice there. The debriefing, the processing it, the overthinking it, the ruminating, the machinating. And it could be as simple as just let it go and let's move on, which I think is part of your core virtue. Correct me if I'm wrong. Action. Talent is great, but attitude, energy, and action is what it's all about. Talk a little bit about your relationship to action and how that's what you feel your superpower and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, I think that a great motivational speaker in Roger Crawford, I'm sure you probably
I
come
know him
across him.
well. Played at
He
Loyola Marymount or Pepperdine. Where did
yeah,
he play? Yeah.
yeah. I'm not
Yeah.
sure, but he said to me a long time ago, talent is not nearly as important as execution. And that is what my parents instilled in me from a very young age. And so I turn your motivation into activation. So I'm not a motivational speaker, I'm an activation speaker. So everything I do has a practical action. I never leave an audience without asking them to take action, whether it be in the next 24 hours for yourself, the next 7 days for someone in your team, or in the next 30 days for someone within your community. Now, the reason this is so important, and I'll give you another practical action tip right now. This is one of my tool belts. I've got coaching toolkits, right? My laminated toolkit. This workshop's called Leader as Coach. Now, here, one of the tools is encouraging people to play above the line, not below the line. So, for example, as a leader or manager or coach, if we ask a why question, why did you do that? Or in the tennis context, why did you miss that ball? Often they'll make excuses, they'll get frustrated, they'll blame somebody, they'll cause more problems and more negativity. That's called playing below the line. If I ask a what question or next time question or what options could you do if you had that same ball again in the tennis scenario, of course, someone's going to choose to play above the line, take responsibility, be accountable, make choices, see possibilities of curiosity. So you can only do that if you encourage people to take action in terms of what it is that they need to change, address, where do they want to make improvements in their life and in the workplace. So I know no other. And again, my parents basically said, I saved up all my money and said, hey, I'm going to Florida to learn from the best coaches in the world when I was 23 years of age. And they said, well, don't come home unless you run out of money or you're in jail, right? So it was like, okay, we'll take action, like sink or swim. Now, I definitely find that when I work with people these days, it's more about stretching your comfort zone one layer at a time. There's only about 5% of the population can sort of jump out of their comfort zone and swim. Most people, that's too much. So I always say the 1% principle, and that works really well, crosses over nicely from sport into the workplace. Just take action on one
Yeah.
thing to get better in the area that you want to go.
It's like when the word transformation is used a lot, especially in speaking and activation, motivation, inspiration, even, a little bit more topic specific, that that we're going to transform with this technology, or this is going to transform education or healthcare. It sounds sexier, it sounds flashier. And people are like, okay, Monday morning, no more chocolate cake, and I'm going to lose this much weight or whatever, right? And I'm going to transform myself. And there's a lot of constraints put on. But really, what you're pointing to is this 1% incremental. I mean, James Clear talks about it in Atomic Habits. And it's like either starve a habit till it disappears, but one little thing that you do that has an exponential impact over time. Is that kind of what you're pointing to?
100%. Now, some people can, of course, take that big leap, but most people, to be successful, it's the daily, it's the habitual, small incremental changes that make the biggest difference. And it starts definitely with performance. I always re-engineer and focus on behavior first, because that then supports the mindset. Because when we get better at something, then we enjoy it more. And when we enjoy it more, our mindset is strong. So just changing a behavior by 1% then re-engineers the mindset that goes along with that. So you can kind of hack the mindset, which I
Yeah.
love. Most people try and change the mindset, but as we know, like New Year's Eve resolutions, of course,
Yeah.
it doesn't last.
Yeah, they're not sustainable. And I think that
Mm.
in Spanish there's a great phrase, trabajo de hormiga, the work of an ant. You see these ants go by, they're just going by. They got like a little branch like a mini branch. And then all of a sudden, a week later, you turn the corner and there's the anthill. But it took thousands of ants, each of them carrying one little thing all day long. And that's, I think, what you're pointing to. The mindset and that hack is fascinating. It reminds me of a friend in common. We have Jeff Salzenstein, who has also been an honored guest on this podcast. He shared with me, he was at the US Open, Arthur Ashe Stadium. His hero McEnroe is commentating, and he draws Chang. And his whole mindset was, I just want you to speak to how powerful words are and how powerful neuro-linguistic programming is. I don't want to embarrass myself. That was it. That was what he said to himself. An elite top 100 performer in tennis profession that made it to the main draw of the US Open. And he beat him in the first set, 6-4, or maybe 6-2. And then he lost 3 straight sets. But he didn't embarrass himself. And that was it. And just share the lesson that we can draw from that.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Jeff. And I played Division I college tennis, and I didn't play on the pro tour, but I've coached many people in similar scenarios. And the first thing I want to say to everyone listening is that we all have those thoughts. So that's number one. Doubts, fears, imposter syndrome, everybody has it, even the best players in the world. So one thing that 100% comes to mind, and one of the quickest, best tips I can share, is that when that comes up, most people try and push a negative thought away, or most people try and push through it. Now, the best thing you can do is actually breathe into it and accept that it's there, rather than trying to push it away. And that's a really important mindset, again, a mindset hack. So accept it. The quicker you can accept it, the better. Self-awareness. Be self-aware. Breathe into the pain, for example, or the discomfort, and then return to the present, execute and deliver. Now, when I say return to the present, a lot of people say that's not realistic. You can't just be positive when you're feeling the pain. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, for example, the more you can be still in the moment, I am ready, I belong here, I am present, I am right here, right now, then you'll be able to be in that moment and be able to absorb those things that come at you, because they'll come at you when you least expect it. They'll come at you from all different angles, not just self-imposed anxiety or fear, but from managers, from leaders, from coaches, from bosses, etc., and parents.
Yeah,
For kids
you
listening as
see it
well.
all the time. A lot of our
Yeah.
viewers, Coach M, are from the meeting profession. I mean, we also have small business owners, and this is again a reminder. Please subscribe and share. We're bringing these great, really rich conversations that we're having with Coach M. And when you are putting on these extraordinary events, like the ones that you're a keynote speaker at, whether it's with Maria Sharapova
Or the Pope.
in
Or the Pope,
in
5,000 people
or
in
the
Rome.
Pope,
My
yeah,
Catholic
or the
parents'
Pope.
proudest moment.
Yeah. You know, it takes a lot to put those events on, and imposter syndrome, self-defeating thoughts, fear, anxiety, the pressure gets to it, whether it's you have to present to your direct report, you have to make a budget, you have deadlines, you have to bring in a creative idea. There's a lot of pressure to perform. And I think that, having that hack or that tool or that muscle and that habit of resetting, saying, I deserve to be here. This is what I've worked for. This is actually the moment that I've dreamed about. And it just to kind of to bring it full circle, it's so brilliant. I mean, I experience it all the time on the court and at work. Do you run into that? I'm sure you run into that all the time with your corporate clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think what I want to draw upon what you said is the simplicity. We overthink things so much, especially in today's society, because our attention is hacked in so many different directions. So coming back to anchoring, again, that's a neuro-linguistic programming technique, an anchor, being able to ground yourself. I mean, just a quick story on my TEDx talk. I was the first speaker, and all of a sudden, this guy in a bright orange cowboy hat, they forgot to close the front doors. He comes walking down the center of the audience and sits in the front row. And I said to myself, like, it's very early on and looks like I'm pausing for effect, everybody. But let me just tell you, the TED talk is the only talk you have to memorize. Okay. So I had this thing memorized, honestly, 6 months preparation, 33 drafts over in 13 minutes. But for a
Right.
split second, I thought, what is a guy in a bright orange cowboy hat doing? Come walking in, and my whole
Right.
talk left me momentarily. And then I took a breath, and then it came back to me. So we overcomplicate things, and we have to be able to. I talk about embracing pressure. I talk about not playing under pressure, but playing with pressure and understanding what pressure means, because it means different things to different people and, of course, in different contexts. But the more you can embrace it, the more you have strategies, as in physical behavioral strategies, then that resets the mind. So I think that's a really key distinction that I want to make here today, because most people talk about change the mindset, but it's the energy of something physical like an anchor that then triggers the mind to be able to perform at your best. And one of my things right before my talk, and also which was brilliant, I just said, breathe in confidence, breathe out doubt. Breathe in confidence, breathe out doubt. And that's all I did, just to anchor myself, prepare myself, go on stage and deliver. And I do it every time I talk, because every keynote, no matter how big the audience is important. It's important to me. I know that I've prepared. I know I've done the work. And at the end of the day, what's the worst thing that can happen? And plenty of things can happen. Someone's phone will go off. Someone will sneeze in an inappropriate time. And you have to be able to flow with that. And I think sport teaches us how to do that. And the workplace, it happens all the time when the unexpected happens. So being able to have micro moments of resiliency is another great tip. These are practical strategies on this show that people can apply immediately
Practice
into
10,
their life.
I think, resiliency, practice 10 out of the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. I'm impressed.
So, you talked about embracing the change, or can I even say embracing the fear, embracing the unknown? What's the opposite of that? Running away from it, avoiding it, ignoring it, which takes energy too. Yeah.
It does.
It's
It does. And often energy, it doesn't work.
yeah.
It's pretty rare unless you have split personality that you can
Right. No,
that you can do that.
I caught
I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm
I
saying
played a ladder match last week. Actually, the first round of this kind of internal tournament here at home. And a gentleman I had beaten before. I had watched a little bit of the scores over the last 6 months, seen that he had improved. I felt that I had improved. And, we play on clay, and he's serving volleying. And my recreational level, it was interesting. And my reaction was I was kind of avoiding. I was trying to finesse it. I was maybe, even if he came in on his second serve, I was trying to lob And I caught myself on the break on this changeover. And I said, make him hit the ball. But more importantly, not like make him hit the ball. I was like, embrace this. He's coming at you. You know, don't run away. Don't try to hit a lob and run away from it. And I'm doing it in a very roundabout way, talking about me, is that the minute it was 3-all, and I caught myself, I went to the towel, he was serving, and I broke him. And I didn't do anything differently other than I shifted my mind a little bit and I said, I'm not going to do lobs. So that was one action that I altered. Energetically, I was a little bit more aware, and he hit a few volleys that I got to, whereas before I wasn't getting to him. And it was that subtle shift. I won the match. I moved on. I have to play now the number 1 seed. But I can see that happening at work too, where there's an uncomfortable conversation or there's a difficult challenge that needs to be resolved. And it's not like, let's run into the fire with bare feet and Tony Robbins them to death. But you do kind of have to face the fire. And,
well, if you don't have that courageous conversation, then it's going to backfire. It'll just build up and build up and build up, and it'll create a much bigger problem. And so one of the keynote talks I have on your fantastic website is From Surviving to Thriving, and the leader as coach, and taking on a coach mentality is the way of the future. In fact, I mean, we're reframing that to say is the way of now. So my book is based on the research of over 520 of the world's leading coaches, asking them in 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what makes a great coach? Those top 10 practices, and they're practices because we have to practice them daily. You don't go listening. Yeah, I do that. Just ask my partner at the end of the night. It's a practice. Listening is a practice. So I appreciate everyone for listening. But I share that to say if we can adopt a coaching mentality, then we are going to be able to live the best story of our life. I really do believe that. And that is what I speak on. It is what I'm passionate about, as well as, of course, women in leadership and changing the face of the game in terms of representation and in terms of how we leader as coach philosophy to be able to, as I said, bring out the best in ourselves and in our work and team members.
Well, I just want to, we're going to kind of round off. I want to land the plane a little bit here as we come to the end of it, but you struck on something that maybe we can revisit at another point, because it's a really rich conversation. I've had the pleasure of working with incredible people who are also women and athletes, ex-political leaders, business pioneers. I had Senator Mosley Braun. She was the first Black female in the Senate ever. But what you point to is really interesting. And again, I'm going to talk about me here. 15 years ago, when I was living in Argentina, my coach was Gabriela Castro. Gabi got to about 61st in the world. She played doubles with Conchita Martinez. And I always joked, in a mostly macho culture in Argentina, I looked at all the teachers in the club and I just liked her style, man or woman. She took notes. She was methodical. There were guys that had played in the French Open. There were guys that got to the 3rd, 4th round of Australia, Davis Cup doubles, top 100 players and everything. And I always joked when Andy Murray took on Maresmo that I said, everybody's a copycat. I'm setting the trend. But you see it in the NBA, you see it in the NFL, you see it all over. And it's just like, what the heck is the difference? Expertise is expertise. Knowledge is knowledge. Coaching, which is we spend a lot of energy talking about energy. And I think, Emma, with Title IX and everything that's happening in the world of sport and in the corporate world, I think over 50% of Fortune 500 CEOs are now women. And out of them, 90% of them have participated in Division I athletics. So that's just my little infomercial for a future podcast with you on this topic. I have 3 daughters. I feel very passionate about it.
Yeah, I will just say with that note, that is one of the reasons I initially became a speaker in sport for female representation. And I'm proud that the Olympics is finally 50-50 men and women. This is the first Olympics where the numbers are the same. We need to get more female coaches on board the Olympics. And lastly, Judy Murray, Andy Murray's mum, is a great friend of mine, and her and
That's
I are going to Africa next week to work with under-resourced kids and women of Kenya. And she says it's a snowflake. You have to create a snowball, but you
yeah,
can only do it one
yeah,
snowflake at a time. So
yeah,
maybe that's landed this episode to say, that 1% principle, just, how can you build a snowball by one snowflake
yeah,
at a time? And there's no way that I would have even met her and do the things that we're doing. She's an incredible coach, an incredible person. If it wasn't for taking action, if it wasn't for rocking up in Mexico when there was hardly any female speakers, and here we are, there's a lot more. There needs to be
yeah,
more and more again. But that is one of my topics, of course, on your website as well, in
yeah.
relation to how do we empower women in leaderships till we get more and more, not just numbers, but it's about expertise. Expertise is expertise, which you said so
Yeah.
eloquently.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a perfect example of active listening because I did my research and I know that about you with Andy's mother, and you glommed onto it and landed the plane once again perfectly and beautifully. And I will take it one step further down the runway, Coach M. If you take, let's just take the United States of America, and this could be the case with Australia, your birth nation. If you take away all the gold, all the medals that the men win, and you take just team and individual medals that the women win, I think in past Olympics, the US women's team alone has finished up 2 or 3 on their own, just on their own accomplishment, if they were just a country without the American men, just to give you dimension to the achievement. It's just, it just take it to that mathematical distilling, and it's incredible. It's just incredible. So, more on that topic on another episode with us. Coach M, we're going to land the plane for real this time, so make sure your seatbelt is on. I just want to thank you. We're all busy. I know you are. You're getting prepared to go to Africa and make an impact on a whole nother continent and a whole nother realm. Just thank you for carving out the time, for sharing your insights, for letting me, get into your book, and then you are able to interpret my notes and my thoughts around it. Just really, really appreciate it. Thank you for making such a difference to all the speeches you give and to the people that you work with.
No, thank you so much, Seth, for the platform that you have, and you have a great energy. So this conversation is it's a joy, and it's just a love to talk about. We both do best.
Great. So for the listeners, once again, subscribe, share, and share alike. We appreciate you being with us. Thank you for listening. You're smarter for it.